Hey everyone, Scott here. Unfortunately, the beginning of the episode this week, we had some technical issues where the guys' microphones weren't picking up their voices, so all that was on the audio file was just a bunch of background noise, so there wasn't much good audio to use on that end. So we're going to pick up the episode about midway through with a discussion about Indianapolis area high school football, and then continue on from there to recap Notre Dame, some baseball, and whatever else we get into. We apologize for the technical issue, and we'll try to get it rectified for next week. But for now, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coach's Corner with Heck and King.
Westfield Lawrence Central game, I think, was a good one. It was like 58-57. I saw that.
59-58.
59-58. You got the numbers right. You got the numbers right on that. And that was an overtime. Zionsville, Carmel played Christian Brothers, and then they played Detroit King this week. So those are some of the 6A games. I still like watching those 6A ball games. That's just me.
That's really good football. And when you look at 6A up north, you're talking about Penn, you're talking about maybe Fort Wayne Snyder, you're talking about Valpo's 5A.
Right. Snyder's 5A, Whiteland's 5A, Merrillville's 5A, Bloomington South, Valpo, Mishawaka, Decatur Central, Lafayette Harrison, and Concord. Those are your top 10 in 5A. And I just enjoy watching the big boy football.
Yeah, I think that's great. Speaking of big boy football, let's take a look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame ranked number 13, playing Navy in Dublin. So last year, Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman's first year at the helm. Last year, Notre Dame beats Navy 35-32. Navy puts on a rush at the end. Navy fires Ken Numalatala Dula Tio. Something like that.
We'll go with that.
He had been there quite a while, too.
Yeah, and he's a triple option coach.
Had done a great job.
He'd done a great job and had fallen on hard times lately. And they hired their former defensive coordinator, Brian Newberry, who now is going to come in. He's going to continue the triple option, but he's going to add some so-called wrinkles. Well, the wrinkles that he added didn't work because the Irish came to play, and the Irish dismantled Navy 42-3. Now, we have a couple of local high school really good football players that played a big part in that game preparation for Notre Dame. Chase Ketterer and Justin Fisher are both on the Notre Dame team, and they were both triple option quarterbacks.
Right.
Ketterer played for Russ Radke when Russ was here and ran the triple option. And, of course, Justin Fisher grew up under that Bart Curtis tree and now plays for Keith Kinder, who's running the triple option. And they were the quarterbacks and the halfbacks and the fullbacks, and put Notre Dame's defense through a great week of preparation because those guys, they know the triple option
they know
backwards
how to
and
run
forwards.
Sure.
And so practicing against those two quarterbacks obviously paid off for Notre Dame, as Notre Dame did a great job defensively. In the first half, they limited Navy to about 114 yards. In the second half, a lot less than that. Some of the new wrinkles Navy tried to play, Notre Dame was there, and I thought Notre Dame's defense was outstanding. But when you talk about Notre Dame's defense, you talk about their three linebackers. All right, J.D. Bertram, Jack Kaiser from Pioneer High School,
right,
and Marist Leofile, and they're all fifth-year players.
Yes,
all three linebackers are fifth-year players. So defensively, they should be pretty good.
They've seen the triple option, and the triple option. See, I was part of the triple option in Texas back in the old days, back in the 80s. So I saw it every week. So I know how to run.
Why didn't they call you? Why didn't Coach Freeman call it the triple option?
They just didn't know that.
That's the name of this show, the triple option.
But I knew how to run the wishbone. I could run the inside outside veer. And then Houston started coming out in that run and gun stuff when the Astrodome in the 80s, and people started getting away from the option. But that was, with the 7 years I was in Texas, that's about all I saw was the inside-outside veer.
It's all
load and lead option.
It's all assignment football. When you're playing and trying to defend that, it's all assignment football, where you're taking the pitch guy, we're stuffing the run. The defensive end has the quarterback.
Gap responsibilities.
And you have to be really, really good in your individual responsibilities. And the Irish did a great job against that defensively. Okay, tell me about these quarterbacks prior to Sam Hartman, okay? Brandon Winbush, Ian Book, Jack Cohen, Tyler Buckner, Drew Pine. And now you throw Sam Hartman into that mix. It's not even close.
A whole lot of difference. I think I saw Ian Book's name today. I think he was on the cut list for the Eagles.
There's not. I mean, Notre Dame probably for the last 4 or 5 years have had dual threat quarterbacks and guys, that were going to read the lead play, and if they play the fullback, they were going to keep it and go. Sam Hartman is a pro. He threw 155 touchdown passes at Wake Forest. He's the all-time career leading touchdown passer in the ACC. And as you watch him back in the pocket, he was 19 for 23 for 266 yards and 4 touchdowns. And he's just a pro back there. If he's got to step up in the pocket, he'll step up. If he's got to slide a little bit, he'll slide up to get a passing lane. He's got some great receivers led by Jaden Thomas and a freshman named Jaden Greathouse who caught 2 touchdown passes. But offensively, this will be a Notre Dame team unlike any that we've seen in a while, as long as we keep Sam Hartman upright.
Well, and the one thing you mentioned too, he's learned those receivers very quickly, because you can just tell that those guys have continued their pass routes. They've broken them off. If he does we'll call it a scramble, but if he breaks or slides, one of the things they did, they still stayed in catchable range. They didn't run away from him. They came back to the ball, where he had, he put some zip on the ball and had some nice openings to throw the ball to people as second and third option looks.
The one thing that when I look at a quarterback, and you can tell that a quarterback is really skilled, is really polished, when he throws receivers open.
Yes.
He throws the football, and the receivers got to go get it. And initially when the ball's coming out, you're saying, what's going on? But he throws the receiver open, and the receiver's got to go get it. He's outstanding. I don't think there'll be a lot of lead plays with Sam Hartman pulling the ball and carrying the ball, because I don't want Sam Hartman touched.
No, he's not an RPO quarterback, that's for sure.
I don't want Sam Hartman touched. I want the pocket around him to be clean. Joe Alt and Blake Fisher are great tackles, and they've played so many minutes and so many games. They're veterans. And the running game, estimating 16 carries for 95 yards, a touchdown. Jeremiah Love, 4 for 40. The Payne kid, 6 for 31. Jadarian Price, 4 for 25 and a TD. So notice one name I didn't say, Logan Diggs. So Logan is sitting there saying, man, I ain't going to get the rock this year. I'm gone. And Logan transfers, and Logan Diggs, is a really good football player. Played really well for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame has some young, fresh legs and quick running backs.
Yes, they sure do.
And it's a different system. Gerald Parker is now the OC. Tommy Rees moves on to Alabama. And so it's a new offensive system, and right away I saw some things that I didn't see a lot in the Tommy Rees era. But in fairness to Tommy Rees didn't get to coach a quarterback like Sam Hartman.
Sam Hartman's good. And before we put a crown on his head, you also have to remember, you were talking about scout team things. Navy is a running team. So it was almost impossible for them to prepare for Sam Hartman because there's nobody in their program that can throw the ball like him during the week to get them, prepared. So he had a very susceptible secondary to throw, against, and he picked them apart. Well, and I don't know if it's going to be any different this week when they play, the Tennessee Tech team or Tennessee State, because they, it's going to have to be till they get somebody like Duke that has a passing offense, where they're going to see secondary people that are used to seeing the ball thrown in those pro-style offenses.
So I like their scheduling, to be honest with you. Last year they're right into the fire with Ohio State, and it's Marcus Freeman's first year. He doesn't know if he's coming or going, and that's okay because he's a first-year head coach, and you're a first-year head coach at the Notre Dame now.
Yes.
Okay, you're not a first-year head coach at Manchester College.
Right.
You're a first-year head coach at the Notre Dame, so that had to play a lot in it. But now he's got Navy under his belt this year. He's going to have Tennessee State this week. He's going to have Central Michigan his third week, and then he's going to play Ohio State. He's going to have some games under this team's belt. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of film on Notre Dame, so there's going to be a lot of scouting.
Oh, sure.
But he's going to have a better feel for his team. I like his team, and I like what Notre Dame, hopefully, is going to be able to do this year.
And hopefully those linemen will continue to protect him, and he'll stay in the pocket. That's just something that's going to progress week at a time, because he's one pass rush away from everything falling apart. So
from Steve Angeli.
Yeah,
he's one pass rush. He's one Sam Hartman getting smoked away from Steve Angeli. And although Steve Angeli, the talk around Notre Dame is that he's really improved, he ain't Sam Hartman. He's back in that list. He's back, and this is no disrespect. I am not disrespecting Brandon Winbush. Ian Book played in the league for a year or two.
Yes.
Made a roster. Jack Cohn played at Wisconsin. Tyler Buckner is now the number 3 quarterback, probably, at Alabama. And Drew Payne, bless Drew Payne, he's at Arizona State, which just came out today and said, no bowl games, boys. Herm Edwards, who was the head coach there for 4 years, put us behind the 8 ball with a lot of recruiting violations.
Something happened.
A lot of recruiting violations during COVID. And Herm Edwards is coming from the National Football League.
Yes.
He's taken a look at the NCAA book on rules, which is this thick. I've seen it.
Right.
I was an assistant basketball coach. They said, Ron, read this book. I said, what, in 10 years?
Yeah.
In 10 years, you want me to read this? But obviously Herm didn't read it, and none of his assistants read it either, because they had 1 million recruiting violations. And so Arizona State, put that rule on their own program so the NCAA could say, hey, at least they're trying to take charge. But college football is here, man. College football is here. Next week is a full schedule. We're going to take a break.
Yes.
With Johnny B. Good, and we're going to talk about some sponsorships.
Right, we want to thank Tony Letcher with Health Markets Insurance. Whether you need help with your health insurance or Medicare, it's time you get the right coverage for the right price. Call Tony today at 574-307-8882 or visit his website at tletcher.com.
Andy Kern is a real estate broker with Weichert Realtors, Jim Dumphy and Associates. The office is locally owned but has big company resources behind it that many smaller real estate offices just don't have. Whether you're selling your 5th house or buying your starter home, Andy can help. He has 6 years of real estate experience and is a lifelong St. Joe County resident. Jim Dumphy and Associates has decades of local experience. Call or text broker Andy Kern at 574-386-4479 for great local service. He is the Colonel.
Courage Chiropractic and Wellness Center. When your body needs somebody to help. Hello, I'm Dr. Karch, and I want to invite you to stop by my office on Cleveland Road in South Bend, just east of Portage Avenue. I've been serving Michiana for over 20 years, specializing in back pain, neck pain, headaches, naturally with gentle chiropractic care. Come see me for a free consultation.
Courage Chiropractic and Wellness Center, when your body needs somebody to help.
James Carpenter is a real estate broker with Weichert Realtors, Jim Dunphy and Associates. The office is locally owned, but it has big company resources behind it that many smaller real estate offices just don't have. Whether you're selling your fifth house or buying your starter home, James can help. James is a South Bend lifer and has 6 years of real estate experience. Jim Dunphy and Associates has decades of local experience. Call or text broker Jim Carpenter at 574-292-CARP. That's 292-2277 for great local service. Frick's Driving School has been named the best driving school in Michiana. Frick's was started in 1960 and is located on Edison Road in Mishawaka. If your child is 15, you can get them started at Frick's. There are multiple instructors available for your driving lessons. Check out the broadcastsport.net main page and click on the Frick's icon to get more information. There you can find out more information and instructions to enroll your new driver. Frick's Driving School, a proud sponsor of Coach's Corner on broadcastsport.net.
Back on the Coach's Corner with Coach Heck and Coach King. We're talking a little bit of college football. The Black Sedan Band again from Birmingham, Alabama, makes me want to get up and dance on this table. But I don't know if Bar Louie would appreciate that.
I would.
Speaking about Bar Louie, what a place, huh?
Isn't it? We're down on the first floor tonight, which is nice. I'm still getting a picture of you on the top of the table. Please don't do that.
Well,
we do want to retain our audience. Yes.
Well, there was.
Hey, it's not so much him getting on the table; it's how I want to see the landing when he gets down might not be the prettiest thing.
There was a bar in North Manchester, Indiana, believe it or not.
I'm going to say the East German judges may not be real susceptible to.
And I'm going to leave it at that, okay? So, right, Johnny Be Good? There we go. They're cheering for me. They want me on the table. Really? They want me on the table?
No, it's in Manchester. He was talking about the Manchester thing.
Oh, okay. I thought we had people saying,
Lord.
Get on the table, Heck.
That's one of those. That's a Church of God school.
It was
Church of the Brethren.
I love God.
That's Church of the Brethren over there. You got to be careful over there.
I was, and my basketball coach was a brother minister.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And you know what I said to him? Coach, cuss at me sometimes. I'm Polish. I'm from the West Side. Cuss at me. Throw a ball at me.
Yeah, do something.
Do something. Just don't make me run sprints for every time I make a mistake.
Oh, Lord.
Call me a name. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
Come on. So Nick Saban in Alabama. Now listen to this, and I know you'll appreciate this. Alabama was a grinded-out, tough football program up until about 2020 when Nick Saban brought in some of these finesse guys, these ex-coordinators from the NFL and things like that. So last year, against a fourth down conversion, who was the defensive coordinator at Alabama and took the Alabama blueprint of just being tough son of a guns, was Kirby Smart.
Right.
Kirby's going for the trifecta this year.
Where's he? He's at Georgia.
But here's on media day, here's what Nick Saban had to say. So Nick met with Pete Rose, in the offseason, and I think it's really cool when coaches meet with other coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They get ideas, and not necessarily coaches in your sport. I mean, we all know how tough Pete Rose was.
Right.
Sliding head first, doing anything he had to say. But Pete Rose told this story about his manager, Sparky Anderson, about the key to handling players. And Sparky Anderson's response was, you got to know when to kick them in the ass, you got to know when to pat them on the ass, and you got to know when not to say anything. So they asked Nick Saban, they said, so what are you doing this year? And Nick said, grinning, I think I've been kicking him in the ass a little bit more than I've been patting him on the ass. And he understands that he's got to get back to this toughness part of Alabama football, because the last 2 years they haven't been relative in the national championship talk. Now they bring in Lane Kiffin, they bring in some of these offensive coordinators that have, and they have great receivers. Now a lot of their offense, instead of ground and pound and just being nasty, it's throwing all these great routes,
throwing the ball around,
great quarterbacks, blah blah blah. But Nick Saban now says, I got to get back to being me and get back to being nasty. And I agree with him, because from a recruiting standpoint, his kids that he recruits are all the best, right?
They're the best players, sure.
And to get him into that ground and pound mentality, and in that mentality of saying it's fourth down, there's no way LSU's going to get a first down against this fourth down. I mean, we're going to plug it up, and our guys are going to play gap control, and you're not getting that first down.
Well, they're going to have to figure out how to beat Georgia.
Well, no, without question. And his thought process is, we got to get back to being tough.
Well, let me ask you this. I see that here in the Big Ten. Think about how things have changed to now. I mean, Michigan's won the last few games with Ohio State. And Ohio State's kind of I wouldn't say finesse, but they're a speed team, where Michigan is back to the old-fashioned Schembechler type teams, where they're just going to smack you right in the mouth and see if you back down or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison. That's a great comparison. And Michigan's had their way with Ohio State the last
they have
years.
Just simply because it's been a street fight. Michigan's won it.
Yeah, and I think being able to do a self inventory of your team. Now, sometimes that's tough to do, because you got to be willing to listen and have somebody say your team's not good at something. Mm-hmm. And as and you and I have coached, we understand that. And it's hard to be critiqued sometimes and say, really, I thought we were pretty good at that. Right. And someone look and say, no, heck, your team stinks at that. And so your mind has to be open, because if you're going to bring people in to talk to you about your team, then you better be able to sit and listen and learn from those conversations.
Well, and just think about some of the teams you had in basketball and some of the teams I've had in basketball. Just your better teams, you always had one guy that was just mean. And he was just going to knock somebody in the mouth, and he was going to earn all 5 fouls, and you didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and we called those guys glue guys.
Sure.
We called them glue guys. And if you had a team of them, and if your glue guys were also your best shooters, your best rebounders, your best defenders, then that's when you had a great team.
Yeah. Well, I know personally, when we moved to Madison, and we were down there in southern Indiana, and in June, one of the first weeks we were down there in June, kids were getting up and down the floor. And I still remember when my son was a sophomore, and he was playing, and somebody came across the lane just on a cut. Next thing I know, there's this kid's laying on the ground. And everybody's looked at him and goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm just playing ball.
I'm bumping a cutter."
And the guy said, "What'd you hit me for?" He says, he just looked at me and said, "Don't come through the lane."
No, I know.
But see, that's just the way we grew up.
I know, and I think good defensive coaches can teach those concepts and continue to teach those concepts when the game has evolved into and this is basketball specifically, pushing the ball, layups, fast breaks, blah blah blah. But if you can get those kids that are grind out kids and understand about bumping a cutter, now we digress, because we're going to talk about basketball in a few weeks after we get after the football thing and in November. But I think in every sporting realm, you can come up with scenarios where if you can be a good listener, if you can be a listener as you're coaching, no matter what sport, and you can take the criticism, just like we ask our players to take the criticism. And if Nick Saban can sit and listen to Pete Rose, and Pete can can, go a roundabout way and saying, Coach, you guys ain't tough anymore, man.
Right.
And, if Pete tells me I ain't tough anymore with that grizzled haircut, that he's got Pete Rose got $1 haircut. Okay, he's got it's a quarter for each corner. And if he's going to slide in and take Ray Fosse out in an all-star game, play as hard as he played, I got to listen to Pete Rose.
Yeah.
And if Nick Saban, who undoubtedly is Saint Nick of all the college football coaches, if he's going to listen and bring some of that mentality back, then I think every coach ought to listen. Let's keep football in our mind here, and let's slide over to the NFL. I think there are some different and great topics to talk about with the NFL today, because today or tomorrow's cut down day, and
The deadline's tomorrow.
all teams probably got about 88 players now. Got to get down to 53. That's cutting 30 players. 30 cut, and so the Bears. I think this is great for the Bears. They signed P.J. Walker, who's the backup quarterback for Carolina last year.
Right.
He's a quarterback much like Justin Fields. He's mobile. He moves, and so the Bears' thinking was, let's bring a quarterback like that in to be the backup, and then if something happens to Justin, then we don't have to change the scheme.
Right.
So they bring P.J. Walker in. They give him a 2-year, $4 million deal with $2 million of it guaranteed. So P.J. comes in, doesn't have a good OTA sessions. He doesn't have a good training camp. His play in preseason games isn't outstanding. So the Bears coaches now, since they're the most pathetic team in the league last year, and I say the word pathetic big time because they were the worst team in football last year. So they get to coach one of the teams in the senior shrine game. Okay, so their offensive coordinator is coaching a kid from Shepherd College. Shepherd College is like a D2, D3 school, and this kid has got all of the records. 6'2", good athlete. He's got all the records, but he's never played in FBS football, never in D1. His name is Tyson Bagent. So they know about him. He's not drafted, of course. They sign him as an undrafted free agent. They bring him in. Well, so Tyson Bagent is not the all-time leader in college football in yards and touchdowns and all those categories for nothing. It doesn't matter if
He's done something.
It doesn't matter if he plays at Shepherd.
Right.
He may be herding sheep for all we know. But he's a Shepherd. So the Bears, they love him in practice. They love him. He gets into some preseason games. They love him. He's got accuracy. The ball comes out.
He's throwing to better receivers.
He was thrown to the second team receivers because he never came in. He was never with the first group. Mm-hmm. So the ball's out. He runs. So now the Bears brass have a decision to make, right? We brought P.J. Walker in, man. We gave him this money. But in reality, this undrafted free agent is better than him. Now, we made the statement that the best players on the field are going to play. We brought P.J. Walker in. So if we cut P.J. Walker, his mistake is on us.
Right.
The $2 million that we got to eat, that's on us. But if they're going to stay true to their word and they say, we're going to play the best guys, it's what they do today.
They cut P.J. Walker.
They cut P.J. Walker.
They sure did.
And Tyson Bagent, the undrafted free agent from Shepherd of the Hills or Shepherdsville, Kentucky, or Shepherd Pie, or wherever the college is, Shepherd Pie, I don't know, from West Virginia.
He's still got a Bears jersey on today, that's for sure.
He still has a Bears jersey, but it's not a done deal because another transaction took place a couple of days ago when the San Francisco 49ers a couple of years ago traded 3 number 1 picks, a number 2 pick, a number 5 pick for the right to pick Trey Lance.
Yes.
And they moved up to the 3rd round or the 3rd overall pick to pick Trey Lance. Trey Lance, once they get rolling, they find out that, in the immortal words of Jumpin' Johnny Wilson,
He can't bust a grape.
Trey Lance can't bust a grape. That's the name of this show this week. Can't bust a grape. So Mr. Irrelevant last year, Brock Purdy.
Yes.
So Mr. Irrelevant is the last pick in the draft. So
And he ends up playing last year because Trey Lance got hurt.
and the other quarterback got hurt, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Who's not there anymore either.
No, he's with the Raiders, I believe.
Yes.
But so Brock Purdy came in, had a hell of a season. He got hurt, comes back. He's anointed number one, Mr. Irrelevant. Sam Darnold, the ex-high draft pick quarterback that's been bounced around, he's now number two. And the Dallas Cowboys trade for Trey Lance, who's got a great body, great athlete, but just hasn't been able to work it out yet.
He was the number 3 overall pick.
Number 3 overall
21. Pick. And like you said, they gave up 3 number 1s and a 4th round or a 3rd round to Miami to get him and to move up in the draft, and then they give him away for a 4th round pick.
And in the immortal words of Mr. Pat King, he can't bust a grape. But here's where, bada bing, give me that again. There we go.
Oh, Lord.
But so here's where.
Like I'm watching a bad Bob Hope movie.
But it's not over. It's not over. So the Cowboys have a quarterback by the name of Will Grier who's fighting for their backup job. And in the game just before they pick up Trey Lance, throws for 300 yards in the game, and he's like 26 for 29. So the Cowboys got to cut Will Grier now because Trey Lance,
to make room for Trey Lance.
Yeah. So here's the GM and me. This is still the GM and me. I say, because as we said, the Bears were the worst. I don't have any more words. I got no words for how stinkle the Bears were last year. But up until the first 3 games this year, in any waiver wire transactions, the Bears have the number 1 choice to pick up any waiver wire.
Okay.
So they waive Will Grier. The Bears have the first chance to pick Will Grier up and to make Tyson Bagent, the kid from Shepherd's Hill, Kentucky, Shepherd Pie, the whole thing. They may keep him as a number 3.
Keep him and move him to the practice squad maybe.
Yeah, so don't be surprised. Here's 3 rookie quarterbacks, Pat, and we all know what rookie quarterbacks do. They get head coaches fired. Rookie quarterbacks.
Yes, they do.
Well, here are 3 rookie quarterbacks that will, from day one, have been anointed to starters. Anthony Richardson from the Colts, Bryce Young from Carolina, C.J. Stroud from the Texans. They're starting day one. Talk about that while I clear my throat.
John, we're going to go to – you want to take another break real quick?
I sure do, if we don't mind.
If you want to talk about go ahead and cover the sponsors. That'd be great. We'll be right back.
And you are listening to Coach's Corner with Heck and King here on BroadcastSport.net. Thanks to Tony Letcher with Health Markets Insurance. Whether you need help with your health insurance or Medicare, it's time to get the right coverage from the right price. Call Tony today at 574-307-8882 or visit his website at tletcher.com.
Broker with Weichert Realtors, Jim Dumpy and Associates. The office is locally owned but has big company resources behind it that many smaller real estate offices just don't have. Whether you're selling your 5th house or buying your starter home, Andy can help. He has 6 years of real estate experience and is a lifelong St. Joe County resident. Jim Dumpy and Associates has decades of local experience. Call or text broker Andy Kern at 574-386-4479 for great local service. He is the Colonel.
Courage Chiropractic and Wellness Center. When your body needs somebody to help.
Hello, I'm Dr. Karch, and I want to invite you to stop by my office on Cleveland Road in South Bend, just east of Portage Avenue. I've been serving Michiana for over 20 years, specializing in back pain, neck pain, headaches, naturally with gentle chiropractic care. Come see me for a free consultation.
Courage Chiropractic and Wellness Center. When your body needs somebody to help.
James Carpenter is a real estate broker with Weichert Realtors, Jim Dunphy and Associates. The office is locally owned, but it has big company resources behind it that many smaller real estate offices just don't have. Whether you're selling your fifth house or buying your starter home, James can help. James is a South Bend lifer and has 6 years of real estate experience. Jim Dunphy and Associates has decades of local experience. Call or text broker Jim Carpenter at 574-292-CARP. That's 292-2277 for great local service. Frick's Driving School has been named the best driving school in Michiana. Frick's was started in 1960 and is located on Edison Road in Mishawaka. If your child is 15, you can get them started at Frick's. There are multiple instructors available for your driving lessons. Check out the broadcastsport.net main page and click on the Frick's icon to get more information. There you can find out more information and instructions to enroll your new driver. Frick's Driving School, a proud sponsor of Coach's Corner on broadcastsport.net.
Back on Coach's Corner. And again, we would like to remind our listeners that you can call in. The number is scrolling on the bottom. You can call in with questions, and we will certainly answer them, regardless if we know the topic or not. But we were on this topic of rookie quarterbacks. We're on this topic of the Colts. So a South Bend Adams graduate, Danny Pinter, is the center for the Colts.
Yeah, Danny Pinter played the other night. I think people around here, Indianapolis people know. I think the South Bend people have learned. Broke his ankle the other night, and he's done for the season. But he's a South Bend Adams boy. Played tight end back in high school, and then went to Ball State, and they moved him to tackle. He gained 100 pounds and played tackle at Ball State. Now he's been the backup center for 3 or 4 years for the Colts, and has been one of their better utility people. And played quite a bit in their game the other night at Philadelphia, and then got hurt. But he's been Ryan Kelly's backup there at center, who's been he himself's been nursing a foot injury. So the Colts are very thin at interior linemen, and anticipate the Colts looking here at the waiver wires that light up here when people are getting cut, because they're looking for linemen right now.
I've said this for a long time, that the NFL stands for not for long, because the amount of injuries that these players sustain at training camp is amazing to me. And they're not even hitting at training camp like they used to hit back in the days with Butkus and Doug Buffon and Gale Sayers and Ed Obradovich. Those guys actually hit.
Yeah.
Those guys. So now they call it a thud. It's a thud practice. All you got to do is touch the guy, and the coaches blow the whistle, and there's nobody going to the ground. But there are so many soft tissue injuries, and that's a topic for another day, because we have all these strength coaches. They put this muscle on. They build these guys up, but I know they're professionals, and I know they know their business, but are they stretching enough?
Then they get contusions from bruises, and you've all had an elbow or to the thigh, or a helmet to the thigh, and boy, it just hurts, and you can't do anything about it. You just got to dig it out. But you're looking at all the running backs. One of the things I've been looking at is these running backs. We've talked last week a little bit. Their lifespans and their usefulness keeps getting less and less. But yet you've got here the Colts have a running back that's holding out for more money, wants to get traded. Saquon Barkley, I think last year was a great example of that with the Giants. He held out, wanted more money, and he's one of the best in the business. Ends up signing again with the Giants, but you would think that would have been a huge message to these younger running backs. The organizations, they're not going to pay you top dollar like they did 10, 15 years ago for running backs. They're just going to go find somebody else.
Well, there are so many great running backs coming out of of the Power 5 schools, and then you go and you find a Walter Payton at Jackson State, and they're just and you hate to say this. I mean, you hate to demean the position because those guys take a beating, and when you say and when you say something like they're a dime a dozen, it's almost like you're demeaning the position, but it's almost true, to be honest with you.
The inventory is definitely bigger, you know.
That's a better way to say it.
And there's more
that's
inventory.
Why you're a pro. That's why I just talk.
So we go into Reaganomics. You know, supply and demand.
That's your exact. There you go again.
And we talked about that in econ class today, supply and demand.
Yeah, supply and demand.
Yeah.
The inventory of running backs, now I didn't say anything about quality, we're talking about quantity, is huge. And you now have running backs that can not only carry the ball, they can catch the ball, and that makes them even more marketable. And we go from there. But, you know, we were talking about the Cardinals and the Phoenix. You know, Kyler Murray still nursing an ACL, and they cut Colt McCoy today, which was a huge surprise because he was their number one. He was their starter. And then they turn around, cut him, so he'll be on the market. Let's see how long Colt McCoy stays a free agent before he gets picked up by maybe the Bears.
Well,
now didn't he used to play with the Bears? Wasn't he with the Bears for a little bit?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I think he had a cup of coffee.
He's been around. You know, gets bounced around. But that leaves the Cardinals with Josh Dobbs as their opening day starter. I think they're going to make a move, and that you may find somebody that gets cut and gets traded, and they may have an opening day starter that doesn't even have doesn't have a Cardinals jersey right now.
Well, Kyler Murray is on the PUP list, the physically unable to participate list, which means if he stays on that list, he can't play in the first 4 games.
Yeah.
So maybe look for the Cardinals to sign a P.J. Walker.
They may find somebody
or Will Greer or somebody that's going to get cut if he doesn't get picked up earlier in the waiver process. Let's slide over to baseball now because baseball's in full swing now. There's about 32 games left, and some of the pennant races are really interesting and really good. But I first want to go into the White Sox, man.
Oh boy!
And
it has nothing to do with the game, right?
I just say
that's
this
a dumpster fire there.
I just say this much. So 2 years ago, Rick Hahn wants to hire A.J. Hinch, who's a really good manager, who's managing the Detroit Tigers now and doing a great job with young players that the Tigers have. But Jerry Reinsdorf's buddy is Tony La Russa. Now, Tony's coming off of Tony's a little bit older than us, but he's coming off of a couple of DUIs and drinking and driving and stuff like that. But Jerry says, Tony, I want to hire you. Well, Tony's got no business being hired and coaching the young talent that the White Sox have because Tony has been out of the game for 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah, he's old school.
He's a dinosaur and trying to relate to these younger kids. Either you water it down for him, which is not Tony's style. Tony's a hardcore guy. And if you're going to be the manager, you can't try and be their buddies. You can't try and relate to them down on their level like a younger manager could. You got to be who you are.
That's what your bench coaches and position players take care of.
And so Tony has 2 disastrous seasons on the South Side and sets them back. Luis Robert, Yohan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, really good young players. Well, now Jerry Reinsdorf calls Tony La Russa up. He says, Tony, how do we fix this mess? Tony, how do we fix this mess? Tony says, Jerry, you got to fire Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams.
You got to get rid of the office guys.
You're 2 guys that are running the deal and making the call. So Jerry fires Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, the 2 longtime White Sox executives. And now the fans are thinking, good, we're going to hire somebody who has new perspective, who's been in another organization, and who's pretty good. And we'll get some new perspective in here. Well, you know, with these young players that we still have. Now Tony's talking about hiring Chris Getz, who's their director of player development, and staying right inside the White Sox.
Staying inside
the White Sox. Either you want to call it a comfort zone, the White Sox home,
The inner circle of the
Yes,
family.
no, exactly. Instead of going outside, so the White Sox are a mess. I mean, two people got shot in a game there.
They had shooting in the ball game.
Yeah, and so now they've come out saying that the shots were fired inside the stadium, where they said when it happened over the weekend that the shots were fired from outside the stadium. So now there's a mess. I'm not generally a White Sox fan, but I am a baseball fan, and I think they got. I think the White Sox still have good young players, but they got to get the other stuff figure out. So what do I say? So Johnny Be Good, what do I say? Who do I say the White Sox should hire? I'm old school. Who do I say?
Who? Tell me.
Ozzy.
Oh yeah, Ozzy Guillen. I'd agree with that.
I mean, if you got to light a fire under somebody, and you got to say, listen, you're going to play this way, and if you don't play this way, you're gone. There's one guy that can do that.
It's
Ozzy.
It's Ozzy, yeah.
And he's on TV he's on their TV network.
He's on the pre and post.
Yeah.
I mean, Ozzy gets a little carried away. He gets a little crazy.
But maybe they need a little crazy.
I agree. I mean, I couldn't agree with you. I'm a Cub fan. We're in a pennant race. Are you kidding me?
The Cubs have changed positions a little bit. They had a tough week this week. If the playoffs started today, they'd now be the 5th seeded team. They have to play the Phillies.
Well, yeah, but I mean, to get a ticket to the
But they're
dance.
in.
I mean, to get a ticket
Right now,
to the
they're still
dance,
in.
They just went through a stretch where they had 12 winnable games. 12 winnable games. And I know Johnny Be Good is a Tiger fan. And they took 2 out of 3 from the Tigers. And, the talking heads say they should have taken 3 out of 3. But Kerry Carpenter hit a grand slam and beat them. So in that 12-game stretch, they won 8 of them. So they're 8-4.
And that's not all bad. Yeah.
Thank you.
Get a little round of applause.
On the table again?
No,
they want
please
me
don't.
on the table?
No, that's for the Cubs.
Oh, okay. So they're 8-4, but unfortunately the Milwaukee Brewers have gone 8-0 in this stretch. So now you're coming upon a stretch of 13 games. The Cubs and Brewers the next 3 nights.
Okay.
So the Cubs are 4 games out.
Must see TV, right?
Must see TV. Got to see them tonight. Got them on DVR. Cubs and Reds. The Reds have played really well. The Reds are in the wild card action.
They are a game and a half out right now, along with the Giants. The Giants have slipped a little bit, and Arizona has snuck in to that last wild card spot.
So it sets up beautifully here. The Cubs are at Cincinnati for 3 games, so they can take care of their positioning there. Their next series, the Giants come to Wrigley Field for 3 games, and then the Diamondbacks come to Wrigley Field for 4 games.
Those are all wild card potential teams.
The next 13 games, the Cubs can kind of control their destiny. If the Cubs can go 9-4 during this 13-game stretch, I think you'll see the Cubs maybe dancing a little bit. But I don't know. They've had some injuries. They've had some young kids come up. Cody Bellinger is a star.
Yes.
He's a flat-out star. The Cubs need to re-sign him. They took a chance on him. He's been kind of down the last few years. He responded. He's hitting 320, 70 ribbies, 20 bombs. Cody Bellinger is a star. So we'll see. We'll see. Where the Cubs.
But in the National League, you're still looking at Atlanta and L.A. The bottom line is those are still the 2 best teams, and you're going to have to beat Atlanta and the Dodgers.
Well, the interesting thing about that is 3 weeks ago the Cubs took 2 out of 3 from Atlanta in Wrigley. So, baseball. You had a pitcher who was on his game one night. Good pitching shuts out.
Yes, it does.
Good hitting.
What's interesting in the American League is your number 2 team now behind the Orioles at number 1 is now the Seattle Mariners, which has surprised people. We're not talking about Texas. We're not talking about Houston. We're not talking about the Seattle Mariners are now the number 2 team. They don't have to worry about playing a wild card. They get the bye. Right now it'd be the Twins in Houston and Texas and Tampa Bay in the wild cards if you had to play right now. It's the same 6 teams as we had a week ago. They're just in a different order.
So here's something I want to bring up in the last minute. I found this. There's a study. All kids, either male or female, under the age of 30, that have been athletes and have died, 40% of those, after they've studied their brains, have CTE in them already. Most of the deaths of those student athletes under the age of 30 have been suicides. So CTE is playing and it's not only NFL players, it's not only older players. The majority of these people that have died before the age of 30 have been football players, soccer players, and hockey players. Sports where you get concussed.
There's some concussions involved.
And you take blows to the head, and CTE is already forming in the brains of those young people. That's really sad, and that's really tough. And if you're a parent today, and you have to make that decision whether you're going to let your little kid play football, and those head-to-head collisions, that's a hard thing to think about.
Think about it. I mean, everybody was playing soccer to avoid the football, and they're having just as many head injuries in soccer
headers
as they are with football and hockey as well, even though they're wearing helmets now. We didn't used to wear helmets.
Yeah, no, and football has the best equipment that they can have.
Right.
Hey, been a great show. Thanks to Tony Letcher and his Health Market Insurance Company. Great sponsor. The rest of our sponsors are awesome. Thanks for tuning in. I forgot to ask you, Johnny, do we have any questions?
Not tonight. We'll get there.
I mean, we got to get some people writing in, calling in.
Yeah, you got to call in. And again, they can see the number on the screen. We have it right there, 574-366-2488. And we'll put you on the air.
We were going to mention the Little Leaguers.
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
I'll let you do that. The team from El Segundo.
El Segundo.
Yes. But the young man's name was Luis Lepay. Okay? Walk-off homer. We saw that was the big news yesterday.
It's a dinger, but here's the biggest news today. I heard he's signing an NIL contract for $750 every time he suits up in the Little League games now.
Well, he's 6'1", 12-year-old.
NIL, bring back Pete Bell.
I get.
Neon didn't want to call.
Here we go.
Neon didn't want it.
John, save me, please. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coach's Corner with Heck and King. We appreciate you hanging with us this week with the technical issues, and we'll be back next Monday with another live episode on broadcastsport.net. And if you miss us live, you can catch the archive show on the website or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also catch the audio only on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. We'll see you Monday at 7.